Welcome to another edition of the Power Lunch Podcast. I'm super excited to be with you today. Got an amazing guest, and I can't wait to share this conversation with you all as well. If you're watching live here on Facebook, make sure you like and subscribe. I get to say that stuff now, so push that button so you get notified whenever we go live for the Power Lunch Podcast, for any videos and trainings that we're dropping on a regular basis as we build out the content on this channel. My name is Frederick Douglass Bussey. I'm the founder of Icon Status Coaching Consulting, and what we want to do is empower entrepreneurs to be able to live the lives that they deserve, to create the lives and the generational, not just generational wealth, but generational impact through their businesses and through the things that they're contributing to the world. So we are excited to be able to talk about this. I want to let you know that the podcast is sponsored by none other than our free Facebook group, the 7-Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind. For those of you who are entrepreneurs and would like to be able to join a community of entrepreneurs who are committed to growing to the next level, whether you're at $20,000 to $50,000 a month and you want to be able to raise that increase in the margin of freedom and safety and power that you have in your business, feel free to click over there on the Facebook group, 7-Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind as well. So without further ado, we're going to get started here in just a second. Make sure you're liking and subscribing, and we will see you on the other side of this. All right, we are back with our guest, and our guest today is Ken Joslin, who's the CEO of the Ken Joslin team and the Grow Stack Drive brand. Say that a few times without messing it up. Ken is a pastor turned coach and real estate powerhouse. Ken hosts Create, the #1 entrepreneur conference in the Southeast, and As the Leader Grows podcast. He has shared stages with people like John Maxwell, Ed Milet, Jesse Itzler, and Grant Cardone. His GSD Elite Mastermind is an exclusive community of exceptional performers and top earners. Ken Joslin is a driven leader who has closed over $250 million in real estate transactions and is the author of the best-selling book, As the Leader Grows. Ken is the go-to coach for entrepreneurs to build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. Please welcome with me none other than Mr. Ken Joslin.
What's up, bro? How you doing, man? Good to talk to a fellow Georgian.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm still in Georgia. You're a little bit west of us now in Birmingham, but it's good to be able to have you. We're connected again.
Yeah,
Ken and I connected, I believe, on Facebook in many different groups, and shared conversations before. But it's the first time to be able to get to kind of share what you do with the platform. And so I'm super excited to have you today. Ken, we talked about a little bit in your bio, but tell people a little bit about what you're up to. How would you describe who you are and what you do?
Man, dude, I'm living a dream, dude. I wake up every day and I'm like, this is really what I get to do for a living and really make this much money doing it. Like, it's crazy, dude. I spent half of the last 25 to 30 years in full-time vocational ministry, pastoring churches, planting churches in the Northeast Georgia area, around Flower Branch, Gainesville, Beaufort area. The other half of that I've spent as a top producing mortgage broker from like 2002 to about 2008 when the market crashed. And then from 2016 to now, I started the Ken Joslin team. We're an EXP team out of Birmingham and in Atlanta. So I've got agents all around Atlanta, all around Birmingham, Alabama. One of the top teams in the Southeast. I've done over $300 million in real estate transactions now in the past, I don't know, it's been a long time, 20 years. And then our GSD brand, which is our coaching and consulting group, which is really my passion. As a matter of fact, I just brought on, people go, man, tell me about the real estate. And I'm like, I don't get up in the morning with a passion to buy and sell real estate anymore. But I do get up in the morning, though. I do get up in the morning with a passion to help guys who have never made six figures pull away from regular 9-to-5 W-2 jobs, become a real estate agent and teach them how to make six figures, which this year, matter of fact, last month, I just brought Chase on as a partner with me. He's actually going to be my team lead, full-time accountant, full-time pastor. He's got a church plan of about 100, 120 people in the Banks County area in Northeast Georgia. And he just came on full-time with me a couple of weeks ago. He did about 70K in real estate on the side. And so he was like, okay, this is what I got to do. And I told him, I said, dude, you're going to make six figures in your sleep in real estate if you can do it on the side with everything you've got going on. So I do have a passion to help business leaders and help guys who have never made six figures crack that six-figure mark. I really do. I really do have that passion. So inside of GSD, again, you read it earlier. And we help business leaders. We're passionate about helping business leaders build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. And we do that a number of different ways. But dude, it's fun, man. It's fun.
There's several things I want to go, but you may not know this, but I'm a PK myself. I'm a preacher's kid.
Oh, come on, baby.
Yeah. So I grew up in the church, kind of navigating that whole thing. Mm-hmm. Did you know when you were younger that you wanted to be did you feel that calling to be
Dude, I got saved when I was 25 years old. I never went to church. Didn't know anything about church. Walked into a Southern Baptist church in right outside of Gainesville, Georgia, in Chestnut Mountain in August of 1993. And 2 weeks later, gave my life to Christ. Had an unbelievable conversion experience. I mean, I was a completely different man. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, therefore, if any man is in Christ, he's a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. Mm-hmm. And that's really what happened to me, man. I didn't know anything about God. I heard the gospel. I heard about how much he loved me, about how his love for me wasn't predicated on my performance. He loved me because I was a son. And when I heard that message, I responded. And dude, he changed my life in a very dramatic way. So much, dude, that everybody around me started giving their lives to Christ and walking in faith. Sister-in-law, brother-in-law, cousins, my other sister. I mean, it was such a transformation in my life. So yeah, no, growing up, man, I maybe went to church maybe a half a dozen times in my life. And so had that experience, gave my life to Christ in August 22nd, 1993. And from that point forward, man, been going at it hard.
Talk about your upbringing as a child. What was it like for you? And I'm always curious because we talk about some people are born entrepreneurs, some people are not. Mm-hmm. I believe that everyone has the capacity to create through entrepreneurship in their life. But did you have that foundation, you feel like, when you were young? Tell us a little bit about what it was like when you were growing up.
No, dude, not at all. So my parents, I was born in Detroit. I grew up in Pontiac. Parents got divorced when I was 8 years old. Mom moved us from Pontiac to Georgia. I was in the second grade. From sixth grade to my senior year of high school, I moved back and forth 6 different times. I went to 12 schools in 12 years, 6 different high schools. And so I was constantly, so I never had a solid foundation or a solid example of what family looked like, of what, raising children. I had none of that because I literally was being tossed back and forth from one parent to the other. And then as soon as I graduated high school, I went in the Air Force, and I spent almost 4 years in the Air Force. Moved back to Georgia when I got discharged and started working at a local company and dispatching trucks and doing computer operations, which is what I did in the Air Force. And then a couple years after that's when I gave my life to Christ. And that's when really things began to shift. That's when I really began to understand what vision was and the power of vision and all of those things and the difference that really could make in my life. So yeah, so dude, I mean, my story is where I'm at right now is an absolutely unbelievable testimony of God's grace and how good he is, that he has me in the position that I'm in, because I didn't have any of the advantages. I just didn't. It's funny. I was seeing one of my therapists a couple months ago. It's a new girl in Birmingham that I've been seeing. And she asked me, when I told her that story, she looked at me, she said, Ken, she goes, why did you want to move so many times? I said, I didn't have a choice. Like if I ever got in trouble, my mom would say, go pack your bag. And I had 24 to 48 hours and I was on a bus, a plane, or my dad was on the way from Michigan to pick me up.
Wow.
So, so really processing through that as a 53-year-old man,
Mm.
and processing through all of my past into where I'm at today and going, wow, man, God, you're so good that I walked through all of those things as a child and even as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've put me in this position. So, really it helps me know that what I teach business leaders, what I teach real estate agents, dude, it really doesn't, you being successful or significant isn't dependent on how you grew up.
Mm.
Does it make it easier? It can, but you don't have to have that.
Right.
And I'm a great father, and I didn't have a dad in my house. My mom was married 2 or 3 different times to different stepdads, one very abusive. As a matter of fact, just one tried to, on a Friday night, beat the door down after she had kicked him out. An hour and a half at 10 or 11 years old. And me, 2 or 3 of my friends and my mom held him off until the police could get there. He went to prison for almost 2 years for doing that. So I didn't grow up in a situation to where I had advantages, dude. I mean, I grew up in the hood in Pontiac, in my aunt and uncle's basement with my dad when I lived in Michigan several times. So, for anybody who's out there and you're listening to this, I don't care where you're at right now. I don't care what kind of past you've had, any of those things. None of those things matter. Surround yourself with the people. I talk a lot about community, circle, corner. Those 3 spheres of relationship are super important. Mm-hmm. Surround yourself with people who are where you want to go. Serve people who are where you want to go. And I promise you, it won't take long. And you'll find God doing something in your heart, helping you get to where you want to go.
I'm curious because when we have traumatic or tumultuous situations in our youth, right? We often phrase them in terms of advantages and disadvantages, but often there are lessons that we can look back on and realize this taught me something that I'm able to utilize today. Are there certain threads that you can see where you're able to pull from those situations, being put on planes at a moment's notice, moving around a lot? Are there different things that you find now that you realize those have become strengths that you kind of lean on even today?
Yeah, resilience, dude. I don't quit. I don't give up. Over the past couple of years and starting GSD, we did multiple 6 figures last year. This year we'll be in multiple 7 figures. I've been doing real estate forever. My health journey, I'm down over 80 pounds in the last 2 years. I've really worked hard internally and externally. I've really worked hard. And I think one of the things that I understood is there's not just, when you walk through situations like I walked through, there's not just a negative impact, but there's also dude, man, I just don't quit. And that concept that I created, incremental, not monumental, small daily disciplined decisions over time always equal monumental results. Success can't escape you if you do the right things every single day. Right. And you just have to be determined and be consistent. And I think with all of the transition and everything that I went through, it's put a resolve in me, a resiliency in me. And then, being 25 years old, coming to faith in Christ and understanding that and how much he loved me, helped heal and take care of all of the stuff, not all of it, but the majority of the stuff from my past. And really gave me a head start into understanding vision, understanding mission statement, understanding core values, understanding, dude, God, you've got a purpose and plan for my life. You spoke the world into existence. If you can speak this world into existence, you're gonna put some huge vision, some huge dreams on the inside of my heart. So I would say resiliency was probably one. I don't quit, bro. I don't quit. People ask me, they're like, Ken, what's separate? Because I'm not the best looking dude in the world. My best friend tells me all the time. My best friend Nate worked for John Maxwell forever. That's how I met John 20 years ago. And Nate goes, dude, you're not the best looking guy he said, you're not the best looking guy in the world, but I'll be damned if you're not the most confident. He says it all the time. I'm like, I think there's a compliment in there somewhere. But dude, I'm not the sharpest guy. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not the best looking guy. I was never the best athlete growing up. I was never the best athlete, but nobody worked harder than I did. Nobody. I remember I got cut in 9th grade playing basketball. Dude, I would go outside and tie my right arm to my side with a rope, and I'd play basketball for 2 hours with my left hand. I'm 50 years old, dude. I can still hit free throws with my left hand. I mean, nobody would outwork me. Like, and I got that from understanding the work that I had to put in to overcome where I was at. But I never looked at what I had to go through in my background as a disadvantage.
So I want to flip that question on his head too, because I love that you took those apparent weaknesses and turned them into strengths. But on the other side, have you discovered that some things that you thought were, or you needed necessarily to survive as strengths when you were younger, have become weaknesses that you maybe have had to deal with as you got older?
Man, I'm telling you, when Maxine, and I'll give you a little, she's my therapist here in Birmingham. I've got two, Maxine, and then my good friend, Dr. Rob Kelly, who's a part of my mastermind. He's one of the top addictions doctors in the world. 97% success. I don't have an addiction, but he's an NLP doctor. So basically, which is neuroplasticity, rewiring of the brain. And so that's the work that him and I are doing together. And he, as I walked through with him and with her, the first time I shared my story with Maxine, and Maxine's like a little tamer version of Medea. She's like a 55-year-old Southern black. I mean, she don't put up no BS. She's funny. And she calls a spade, right? No, this is what we got right here. And she said one day, she goes, Ken, she goes, why did you want to move so many times? And I said, Maxine, I didn't have a choice. If I ever got in trouble, I was told to pack a bag.
Right.
And I'll never forget, dude, it's been 2 or 3 months ago. I'm 53 years old. And she was writing in her book. She looked up and she said, well, how do you think that's had an impact on your relationship with the women in your life who are supposed to love and protect you? And I was like, wow. Like, you want to talk about an aha moment? You want to talk about a light bulb going boom? You know, every time I got in a situation where I felt like I wasn't wanted, I would run. Every time I got in a situation where I felt like I didn't live up or measure up, I would want to pack a bag and leave, because that's what I knew. And so now it's rewiring all of those things to where I can't, because dude, I wore that as a badge of honor for 30 years. I literally wore it as 12 schools in 12 years, 6 high schools. You can put me in any situation, I'm going to thrive. And I did. I was friends. Like, I was friends with everybody everywhere I went. But I didn't realize even as a teenager, and even as, going in the military after I graduated from high school, I didn't realize that was something I put on a front as an advantage to hide the hurt and the wound in my heart.
No, that's really powerful, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, the ones who become successful, are being driven or powered by some sort of longing desire that's often masking a hurt or an emptiness, right? And you're trying to fill that hole. And so a lot of times we think that we fill it with success, monetary accolades, whatever the case may be. You discovered God, gave your life to Christ, became a pastor. Well, so what was that a instant transition? Did you just, I'm giving life to Christ and becoming a pastor, or was it?
So I gave my life to Christ in August of 93. About 2 years later, I got filled with the Holy Spirit, and I started, actually about a year after that, my pastor said, hey, we've got a Sunday school class, high school Sunday school class. We'd love for you to teach this. So I walk in with like a handful of kids and grow that thing to like 30, 40 kids, just like that. And then, so from there, we planted a church. I went with that church plant, and I was actually the youth pastor. I was the guy, right? Because I knew God had called me in the ministry. I didn't know what that looked like, but here's the opportunity. So dude, you just walk into it. And I walked into that opportunity. We had, I don't know, half a dozen kids, 7 kids. And over a period of about 2 years, I grew that to several hundred. Was doing my own National Youth Leadership Conference, speaking on large stages with guys like John Maxwell and Ron Luce and Zig Ziglar. And, President Gerald Ford was at one of the events I was at. Had an incredible opportunity. And you said a word just a minute ago that's huge for me. The first big stage I spoke on was about 8,000 people, 8,800, I think is what we had there at a leadership summit. behind John. I spoke behind John, which I spoke behind John at my conference this year. I told him, I said, dude, we're not doing this anymore. I'm not speaking behind John Maxwell. Listen, the guy you don't want to speak behind on a stage is John Maxwell, right? Yeah, I'm like, John, you suck all the air out of the room, bro. There's nothing left for anybody else. No, I'm kidding. But I got off the stage that time, and my mentor pulled me aside, and Jeannie said, Ken, can we do lunch tomorrow? I said, sure, I'd love to. So I'm 31 at the time, 32, something like that. And she says, hey, can we go do lunch tomorrow? I said, sure. So we sat down at lunch, and she asked me the most important question of my entire life. And she said, Ken, do you want to be significant or do you want to be successful? Because they're two vastly different things. And I didn't really understand completely what she was talking about, but I knew enough that significance was the right answer. And so she helped me start a 20-year journey of understanding what a significant leader looks like. A significant leader is concerned for and is passionate about building those around them so they can win at levels they've never won at. Where a person who chases success uses people around them so they can win. And when that happens, you'll always leave a trail of damage. You have to, as a leader, and it really falls right in line with Zig Ziglar's, my favorite Zig Ziglar quote. If you help enough people get what they want, eventually you'll get what you want.
Right.
Like when you understand servant leadership, and that my role here isn't to be the head honcho. I remember Andy Stanley is one of my favorite pastors in the Atlanta area. Stanley one time they said, why are you the senior pastor? He said, because I got here first. Like that's it. I was the first one here. So therefore I'm the guy, right? It's the same thing. Why are you in that position? Because I'm the one that I got here first. There's no other reason other than that. And so when you lead from significance and you really have a heart and a passion for the people that are serving around you, you understand that your role is to help them become the best version of themselves and help them achieve their personal, professional, and financial goals. And when you do that, what happens is, dude, what is a rising tide lifts all boats, old Chinese proverb. Same thing. You know that you're going to get everything in life you want. And the most important part of that is you can live life with a level of fulfillment that you cannot purchase. I don't care, dude. I hang around with some of the wealthiest people. If I started dropping names, you'd know them. I mean, I've got 4 8-figure earners in my mastermind. That's guys who are making $1 million a month. 4 30-something millionaires, guys that are making $1 million, and businesses from several million to, I got a guy doing over 100, did $10 million in sales last month. 10 million in 1 month. I mean, I've got one of my other buddies, dude, his company over in Malaysia, they're doing like several $1 million a day in sales. I hang around some of the most accomplished entrepreneurs in America, but they're not just accomplished entrepreneurs. They're world-class human beings. And that's the difference. That's the difference, because they understand it doesn't matter how many zeros I have in my checking account. Doesn't matter how many commas. Doesn't matter that I was with Jeff in Calabasas 2 weeks ago, riding to breakfast in his 2016 Rolls-Royce Phantom convertible, which they stopped making. He has one of only a handful in California. That's a $600,000 car. And we're going to breakfast in it. Like, okay, yeah, we're gonna take the Bentley SUV, or we're gonna take the Rolls Phantom convertible. Like understanding that those things don't dictate your value or your worth. How you treat human beings and how you live a life of significance really are the things that matter.
Let me pull on that thread for a second, because there's likely somebody who's listening to this interview and they're saying, that's easy for you to say, Ken. That's easy for you to say when you're making $1 million a month. That's easy for you to say.
Well, I ain't making $1 million a month, but I do understand what you're saying.
Right. Well, yeah, because there's different levels. Everybody is at, no matter what level you're at, you're always looking up at somebody at another level. And so oftentimes it's difficult for people to imagine that you cannot feel fulfilled, not having the things that you don't have right now. What do you say to somebody in that position when they're saying, well, if I had that, I would feel successful?
Dude, I heard TD Jakes preach a message 20 years ago. I don't know if you know who T.D. Jakes is. I'm sure you do. I heard T.D. Jakes preach a message 20 years ago at a pastor's conference. And the title of his message was A Place Called There. And it was a pastor's conference. It was called A Place Called There. He said, listen, I know every pastor, and there's, I don't know where we were at. I think we were at the Potter's House in Dallas. There's several thousand pastors there, right? And he's talking about, all you're consumed with is getting there. Like, it's almost like Abraham, when God said, Abraham, I want you to move your family. Where do you want me to go to? I don't know, just pack your stuff up and head out. Like he didn't know where he was going. Yeah, just move. And so we're so consumed with the vision and where we want to go. And we think that when we get there, it's going to give us this level of fulfillment. The reality of it is it's not going to. Like especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this today, there's really two traps. Well, number one, comparison is the big trap because comparison has two flip sides of the comparison coin. One, you compare yourself. You said you're always looking up to guys. So when I get around guys like Jeff and I go, bro, I got a check right here on my thing. You see that? That's my check to myself for $1 million dated 6/23/23. I'm going to cash this check January 23rd of next year. My goal is to make $1 million in the next year for myself. That's my money, $1 million bucks. When I shared that with Jeff, we're sitting at his house in Calabasas. He lives right across the street from one of the Kardashians. Donald Trump's ex-wife lives right down the street. Like Al Harrington had played in the NBA. I mean, it's just celebrities and sports, retired sport, and some current sports people all live in that subdivision where he lives in Calabasas. And he leans across the table and he goes, I said, $1 million a year. That's what I said. I want to clear, not my company, me. I want to clear $1 million. He leans across the table and he goes, a month or a week? And I said, no, Jeff, you didn't hear me. I want to make $1 million a year next year for me. And he leans back across the table and he goes, a month or a week? And then I was like, okay, I got you, bro. What you're doing is you're saying, and Carlos is one of my really good friends. Carlos and I had the same conversation. He did the same exact thing. He was like, a month? Like he didn't do the week thing, but because I said $1 million for the next year. He goes, $1 million a month or $1 million a year? Like you've got to have those type of people that you're spending time with who are going to challenge the vision that you have. So that's comparison number one. When you look at people that are ahead of you, if you're not careful, you'll start comparing to where they're at. If I compared to where Jeff's at, I wouldn't even be able to get out of bed in the morning. If I compared to Gary Brecka, who is partners with Grant Cardone and 10X Health Systems, who I was on the phone with this morning, and what he's doing, dude, there's no telling what that looks like. I mean, he'll be worth a few $100 million in the next 10 years with 1,000 locations that they're doing at $100,000 They did 400 applications at $100,000 a pop at GrowthCon this year. That's $40 million in revenue. Like Brent Gove, who's in my group of 5, he's in my mastermind at EXP, 35,000 agents in his organizations, over $1 million a month in residual income that he's making. When I get around these guys, I don't look at them and go, oh God, I'm never going to get there. Oh, how can I get there? I don't do that at all. Listen, the other flip side of that coin is when you see somebody who's not where you are, then you start thinking that you're more than you actually are. And I'll borrow a line from my friend Dave Ramsey. The only competition you have is the guy you shave with in the mirror every morning. Like, that's it. Like, this battle ain't me against Frederick. It's not me against Jeff. It's not me against Gary Brecka. It's not me against Randy Garn or Anthony Trucks or Carlos Reyes or Greg Reed or Sharon Lecter or any of the other friends it's nothing to do with them. This is me. Right. Like, this is the battle. You want to go back into therapy and why am I doing the work that I'm doing right now? Is because I want to become the best version of Ken Joslin that I can become, because when I do that, I'm able to make greater impact for the kingdom.
Right. Dude,
nobody is doing what we're doing right now when it comes to a faith-based mastermind. Nobody's doing what we're doing at the level we're doing it with the people that we're doing it with. And so I see this and I'm like, okay, because now, like after we did Create Conference last year, and John Maxwell gets up for 90 seconds and just talks about how amazing Ken Joslin is and what a leader he is, and I'm sitting down there on the seat crying like, oh my God, this is my guy John Maxwell talking about me. And then my guy, Randy Garn, who's best friends with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, who's Dean's best man in his wedding. Randy leans over to me and whispers. I was on the phone with him yesterday for 20 minutes, like crying about, I literally was tears about what God had put in my heart for us to do in the next 12 to 24 months, all the vision and the impact that we can have on people's lives. And Randy leans over at the Friday during the conference. He goes, now I know why I'm here. God has connected me with you to help me get your message out to the world. Mm. You want to talk about weight? You want to talk about, oh my God, okay, this is the real deal now. This isn't just vision anymore. This isn't I'm writing my goals down twice a day. This is, this is real. Like this is really, really happening. And when that happens, if you compare yourself to people below you, you'll be complacent and you won't want to grow anymore. And it's got to come to a point for me. Now, Grant may be different. Bradley is a good friend of mine. It may be different for different guys, and that's okay because I'm not Grant and I'm not Brad. And guess what? Hey, I'm not their Holy Spirit. That's between them and God, however they want to do it. Ain't my business. But for me, it's not about, I have 4 numbers for GSD this year, 50, 100, 500, and 1,000. 50 people in GSD Elite at 35K a pop. 100 people in GSD Community at 6K a pop, 500 people at Create Conference. That's 1.45 million in ticket sales. 1,000 courses sold this year. That's 1.497 million. That's 5.192 million in revenue this year is what we're going after. Mm-hmm. But that 5.192 million, if let's say we hit all those goals, does that make me a better human being? It doesn't make me anything. All it does is give me the opportunity now to take that revenue and be able to make even greater impact on people's lives. That's all it does. And if I compare myself to guys above me, like a Grant or like any of the guys that you mentioned just a while ago, if I compare, then I'm like, well, I'm not doing enough. And then it'll cause me to strive to fulfill somebody else's vision instead of the vision God's put in my heart.
When did that shift start to happen for you in terms of being a pastor? Because you mentioned the conversation you had with your mentor, and they're telling you, this may be something, this is a path that you really should start leaning into.
Right.
You believe it. You're taking it, and you've had, up to that point, you had already started to have success. You're growing the youth groups, you're having people to come, you're starting to plant churches, things of that nature already. So you had a history of leadership, of influence, of growing communities. But when did that shift really start to sink into you that this is something that I can do and I can apply this, and not just in church, but anywhere, wherever I go, and that it's necessary to do that?
Yeah, there were a couple what I would call like milestones in there where I was like, okay, God, what are you doing? What are you doing? One was October of 2019. I was doing real estate, making about 120 grand a year. And I was making 10 grand a month. I was working 10 hours a week. I was bored out of my mind, dude. I had no idea what I was going to do. I ran into a guy named Grant Cardone. I didn't know Grant. I never heard of him before. Saw on Instagram. Listen, you click on an Instagram ad from Grant Cardone, you're in the rabbit hole, bro. You ain't never coming out of that thing. And so I clicked on that thing. Next thing I know, I'm on a webinar the next Saturday, a free webinar. Grant was supposed to speak for 90 minutes. 2 hours later, he hasn't even come up for air. Dude, he's going to town on mentorship, pitches his first mentorship group. This was 2.5 years ago. I signed up for it along with 12 or 1,300 other people. Got in the mentorship group Monday night on our first call. He goes, hey, I'm doing this boot camp down in Miami. You need to come in 3 days. And literally within a span of 48 hours, I dropped $6K. To be in the mentorship group and then take my tail to Miami and bought whatever the ticket was, $3 grand, $4 grand extra, plus flight, plus travel, plus all the other stuff. That was the one. And then when I went down there, what I told Grant later, about a month later, I was actually speaking because my business took off. I made $129,000 the last 2 months of 2019. I doubled my income in 6 weeks of what I made the entire year before. And Grant was pivotal in me being able to do that. I spoke at 10X headquarters on December the 9th. They invited 12 of those original people that were in the mentorship program. 12 out of 1,000 plus. It was like 1,200, 1,300. And I was the one that had shared my story in front of the whole staff, 175, 180 people. And I shared it in front of Grant, Jared, Elena, Richie, who's a really good friend of mine now, who ran the Cardinal licensee deal at the time. And so I shared that in front of all those guys. And I told Grant, I said, the best thing I can tell you is when I came to boot camp, the businessman on the inside of me got born again. Like there was something that I went, where has this been my whole life? And then from there, working with my pastor, coach, and mentor, Sean Lovejoy, who runs Courage to Lead. It's one of the largest coaching organizations for ministry leaders. And now even business executives. I helped Sean get that business executive part off the ground. And then when I met Grant, I'm like, I was actually doing that before I met Grant. And then I met Grant and I'm like, I want to do this for myself. And then I started it. And you know when you talk about God doing stuff and bringing stuff full circle, we had our first mastermind in the Atlanta area on Lake Lanier. We were there, about a $2 or $3 million house. I think I had 24 people sign up, $35K a year to come to that deal. And we're there. Sean was one of my speakers, just published his new book called Killer Teams with Thomas Nelson or Baker, one of the big publishing houses. And Sean came in to speak and he stayed with us for about a day and a half. He called me the next week and he goes, dude, let me tell you something. He goes, everything you've been through for the last 15 years was to prepare you for what I saw this week. You are doing exactly what you're supposed to do and what you were created to do. You're going into, I literally took the gospel. People say, what's GSD like? And I tell them all the time, it's like 10X and the church I planted back in the day got together and had a baby. That's what GSD is like. It is a group. It is a faith-based group of entrepreneurs who are crushing it when it comes to business. I mean, I just named some of the guys that are in it. Amberly Lago, top podcast host, top author in the country right now. Carlos Reyes. I talked about Carlos. Who else I got in there? Dr. Rob Kelly, one of the top addiction specialists. Dude, he's treated everybody from Eminem to Robert Downey Jr. To Post Malone to Steven Tyler. I mean, dude, his list it's A-lister after A-lister after A-lister. He called me yesterday on the way to lunch and then called me on the way home from lunch. He lives in San Antonio just to show me his brand new red Ferrari that he bought. And so I know, right? I'm like, yeah, his Ferrari hat on at the restaurant. I'm like, you driving your Ferrari? And he's like, I'll call you back when we get to eat. And he gets in and he's like, hey, what's up? And he's showing me his red Ferrari. But, when you get around guys that are not just crushing it in business, but they're amazing world-class human beings. Bro, when you get a circle like that, dude, there's literally nothing you can't accomplish.
Right. I think it's interesting that you have built a real estate company where you help people move into new homes when your childhood was so much about moving from place to place.
Yeah.
There's a bridge there, but also now what you're doing in leadership is you're helping people to transition from careers or just working, right, to actually creating more impact and influencing people. What has that experience been like for you? What have been some of the lessons that you've learned? Maybe you can share with us some of the failures you had, because obviously you're around so many amazing people, but what are some of the lessons you learned, some missteps that now you look back and say, okay, if I'd done that differently, and we don't always, when you learn from a mistake, you take the lesson, you say, well, I'm kind of glad that I went through that. I learned the lesson. I took it from it. But at the time, it didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
Maybe share with some of those things.
Yeah. I'll give you two that come like, right to top of mind. One was when I was pastoring, I am so locked in and so focused sometimes. I had people in my church on Sunday, they'd be like, hey, Pastor Ken, you walked right by me in the lobby and I said, hey, and you didn't even pay attention to me. And I'll never forget having a conversation with Sean Lovejoy. I told you he's been my pastor, coach, and mentor for 13 years, 14 years. He said, Ken, he goes, the one habit that Jesus had was he learned to walk slowly through the crowd. He was never in a hurry. When you're Sunday morning, dude, you got to speak twice. You got people pulling on you and dragging, and you're trying to stay locked in on, got what God's put in your heart for the message that day. But Sean said Jesus learned to walk slowly through the crowd. And you look at some of the miracles that Jesus did, It's because he was walking slowly through the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
He was on a hurry to get to Jairus' house because Jairus' daughter had died.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, his daughter was sick. Jairus said, nope, Jesus can get her healed. He goes to get Jesus. I think it's in John chapter 8 or John chapter 9. He goes to get Jesus. And then on the way back, they go, whoa, stop. She's dead. Well, what was the holdup? Well, while they were on the way, the woman with the issue of blood, according to scripture, who had menstruating, had her period for years and spent all the money she had, she couldn't get healed, was terrified because literally it was illegal. It was against the law, the Levitical law, for a woman who was on her period to touch a rabbi or a priest, punishable by stoning by death. And here she comes crawling through the crowd and touches Jesus on the hem of his garment. And instantly she's healed. And Jesus turns around and goes, who touched me? And the disciples are like, bro, there's like 800 people here. What do you mean, who touched you? Like it says in the King James, it says the multitudes, they throng and press against you. Like it's like you can't even move in the crowd. And he goes, no, I perceive power came out from me. This wasn't just a touch. This was a touch. And so here's Jairus trying to get Jesus to go to his house, and he can't get him because Jesus has stopped to heal somebody else. How many of us would have been like, whoa, come on, Jesus, we got to go. No, my daughter's sick. You told me you were coming. We got to go.
Got to go.
And they stop. And then Jairus' daughter comes, but Jesus learned to walk slowly through the crowd. It's so funny because Patience Bergamy, it was her birthday the last couple of days. She was my first hire on my team, full-time hire. And she was just like me. And it was about a month into her being on staff full-time. I had to sit down with her, and guess which conversation I had? Hey, you've got to learn to walk slowly through the crowd. Let me tell you about old Pastor Ken over here. Let me tell you how I had to learn this lesson. I think that'd be number one. Number two would be in the real estate. If you're in any kind of service business, service industry, especially in real estate, and nobody's ever positioned it the way you did just a minute ago. Here I was moving from home to home to home, losing homes, doing all this stuff growing up, and now here I am helping people buy their home. That's phenomenal. I've never heard anybody put it that way. The one thing I think inside of real estate or any kind of service business, I don't care if you're selling cars, if you're in sales, understand, and this is what I have to tell my agents all the time, because once you've done, I've done 300 million in transactions. I've done a lot of deals, man, from mortgage broker and in the real estate side. This is their biggest decision. A lot of them are going to make in their life.
Yeah.
This is huge. They don't have your experience. You have to slow down and help them walk through the process and make sure that you're communicating with them in such a manner that if they have questions, they can come to you to ask questions. So I would say those are probably two big mistakes. And really both of them have to do with slowing down and really taking care of people. Like, are you adding value? Do you care? Again, and I don't care what kind of sales you're in. Is it transactional or is it relational? What does that look like? And earlier in my career, especially in the mortgage side, it could be very easily be transactional if I didn't know you. Because I knew if I close this $1 million deal, I'm going to make a point on the front and a 1.5 on the back. That's a $25K deal for me. You know, I knew what I was going to make. And so I would say, learn to walk slowly through the crowd, which is giving people the attention, adding value. I say this all the time, that significant leaders understand, then they're intentional in adding value.
Right.
Like they're the ones when somebody calls your phone, Frederick, and you see their name. Like if you call my phone, I'm like, dude, what's my boy got? Let me answer this. You want to answer the phone call, but then you've got people in your phone also when they call, you're like, click, and you send them a voicemail and you turn that bad boy face down on the desk. Like when you're a person who adds value, and I say this a lot, and you probably heard me say this, when you're a person that wants something for people, not from people, people want to be around you because I don't want anything from you. Grant knows I don't want anything from him. There's nothing I want from him. All the guys in my circle, all the guys in I don't want anything from them. I just want to do life with them and make an impact for good and for the kingdom. And then I'm going to naturally get something from them because I learn constantly from them.
Right, right. In the middle of the pandemic, well, let me ask this question first. I have multiple questions come up at the same time. People have this idea about selling, right? And we know entrepreneurs, that can be a hurdle that a lot of them get over. You're surrounded by a lot of people who are selling a lot. They're making a lot of money. What is one of the hurdles that you see entrepreneurs, or even with your brokers, right? You're looking for people who understand you got to close a deal. But when it comes to sales, to me, sales is a form of leadership. You're leading people to the point of a decision. You're helping them to be able to decide. How do you frame sales when you are training your people to be able to take up their business to the next level that might be applicable to other entrepreneurs and learning how to grow in that aspect of their business?
Right. Be passionate and believe in your product, whatever it is. I heard Gary Brecka at my Vegas event last October. I did my boot camp there at Brad Lee's new space, his meeting space, really cool. And I heard, Lightspeed. We did it at Lightspeed headquarters. And I heard Gary get up on stage and he talked about a study they did, scientific study of the electronic frequencies we emit as human beings. He said the highest frequency registered was authenticity. And authenticity is when you have a high understanding of a topic and a high belief in a topic. And when you do that and you couple those things together, when you're sharing, you're not selling. You're like, dude, this is what I got going on. Like this, you saw how fired up I got when I'm talking about our mastermind. It's $35K a year and $10K a year for your spouse. It's $45K a year. That's a high ticket item. Dude, if you qualify and you're in that gap and you're a person of faith and you want to be in a community of very high level entrepreneurs, there's no way in the world you can't take advantage of that. So for me, positioning it for my sales team on the GSD side is do you have a high belief and an understanding of what we have? Because I tell people, I'm not a great sales guy at all. I'm just super passionate and I believe in what we're doing because I see the life change all around me. I see the testimonies all around me of people's lives that are changing. I think on the real estate side, it's a little different. On the real estate side, it's asking questions to the point to where you get them to that light bulb aha moment, but you help them get there on their own.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
We're getting close to wrapping up here, but I'm curious. We've all kind of been through this pandemic situation, and it's not completely gone away, but it's changed a lot for us in terms of economics, the way that business is done, even how people are living their lives, right? So you see that on a very personal basis when it comes to people choosing a home or a place to live. But for leaders in organizations, what are some of the realizations that maybe they're missing, or you feel like they need to start leaning into even more so with the kind of swift transition that we've made through this pandemic?
I think a couple things. So I think the pandemic and then what we're facing right now with the economy going into a recession, unless you believe what the White House put out yesterday and said, the definition of a recession is 2 quarters in a row where the GDP drops X amount, except for this time, because this time really isn't the same as whatever. I see it. I see it in the housing market already. We're already seeing it. You're seeing it in interest rates. You're seeing beginning of a recession. So I would say the recession and where we were at in 07, 08 and where we were at during COVID. Number one, understanding that the economy is always secular. It's always secular. And I don't care which side you vote on because both parties can be idiots in several different ways. It doesn't really matter. I think that what happens is now, if you're in a service-based industry, plumber, carpenter, people doctors, where they have to have you, you're going to be fine. If you're in a business like what I'm in on the real estate side, what you're really going to have to do now is lean into building better relationships with your clients, adding value. And you do that through adding value to your clients and not wanting something in return, so that when they are in position to buy or sell something, you're their go-to because you've been in their life so many times. It's top of mind marketing. You've been in their life so many times because you've added value, because you genuinely care about them as a human being.
Yeah. Caring about people.
Yeah, that's it, dude.
I'm extremely grateful for the insight and just you sharing your story. And I think you've given us so many gems about leadership, about caring. I love the walk slowly through the crowd. For those who maybe want to know more about your mastermind, working with you on any particular level, even if they're looking for $1 million home, hint.
Yeah, I can help you with that too.
How can people reach out to you? How can they find more about you and work with you?
Yeah, best way is Instagram at Ken Joslin, KenJoslin, or you can go to growstackdrive.com, GROW stack STACK drive DRIVE.com. And then everything's pretty much there.
Awesome. Awesome. Any words of wisdom that you would leave with entrepreneur right now who is dealing with this transition? They're worried about the economy. They're worried about, is their business going to be able to continue to grow, stagnate, whatever? What would you leave with people today?
I would say get in rooms with people who think bigger than you do. Who are you around that is at a whole nother level? And what do you need to do to be able to get in their circle? Because to be honest with you, if there's anything I've learned in the last 2.5 years from Grant and from some of the amazing people I get to spend time with, it really is that. It's get in rooms with people who think bigger than you do. It is 100%. You got to get around the right people. The relationships are the key component in really everything you do in your life.
I love it. I love it. Ken, so grateful, man, for you sharing your wisdom and insight with us. It's been great.
Man, I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you.
Absolutely. For everybody who's dropped by, watching this video, whether on YouTube, Facebook, whatever the case may be, we're just grateful for you. And hopefully you've got a ton of value from Ken. Reach out to him. If anything applies, whether it's a home or the mastermind as well. I'm Frederick Douglass Bussey, ever forward.